Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank John Eigner for his heart for us men, for the relaxed attitude and for the integral attitude, the holistic attitude. Sven and Martin, thank you very much for your seriousity that you have brought into this event here. So my hour with you will be the access to this topic of becoming a father, being a father, fatherhood. Some questions arise. First question, why do you want to become a father? For those of you who are not yet father. And why have you become a father? What is your driving force, the purpose? What crossed your mind when you said, I am going to be a father? Second question, being a father, what does it mean to perform this role in a male way, a masculine way, to father your own children? The third question, how does your relationship change, your love, your sexuality? In this relationship, is it still a fulfilling one, or will it something like living together, coexisting together? What are the pegs and key issues here? These are some of the questions that we are going to address in this talk and also throughout this weekend. And one thing is clear. Ideally, you are an adult. You have come of age before becoming a father. But what does it mean, coming of age or being an adult man? Well, it means, for one thing, over the adolescence or in the years following the adolescence, you have succeeded in parting ways with your mother, separating from your mother without degrading the femininity, which many of us did, because otherwise we would not have gotten out of this symbiosis. Point number one. Second point, and we are going to learn more about it, you must have settled your relationship with your father. Steve Dahl once said, if you are still at war with your father, you are at war with your masculinity. How on earth do you want to become a competent and loving father if you are at war with your own masculinity? Mother, father. The third element of becoming an adult is that you are able to lead relationships, to enter into relationships, a loving relationship. Fatherhood is the path of growth. It's not an arena where you hope that unfulfilled needs from your childhood may be fulfilled through your own childhood. Sam Keen once put it like this: two questions need to be asked by a man. Where do I want to go, and who goes along with me? If you turn the order of these two questions, you will probably get caught up in a vicious cycle. Becoming adult would mean that first you need to take a clear decision to become a father. What does it mean for you? And together with your partner, you will go down that road so that your children can learn the most important thing that they can get from you, learning from you, or do not unlearn the most important thing, to love yourself, because that's your job, to create the space for that purpose. I'm not saying this so that everybody feels ashamed if we have not fulfilled this ideal path, but just by recognizing that fatherhood or motherhood is not something that just befalls you, just like falling into love. And then you know how it works. No, it's a task, and it's a way that you have to go. You need commitment. It requires commitment. And to put it more in a male way, you need to acquire a lot of competences to become a competent father. I would like to do 3 things with you. At the start, for one thing, let's take a look at your relationship with your father. What's still not settled? In 2017, I gave a lecture, Fatherhood and Fathers Force. Who was back then with us? Who saw it, so that I get a feel? Roughly half of you saw this talk. In the second part, I will try to share some things with you that are very close to my heart when it comes to fatherhood. And at the end, we are going to see a few extracts about initiation of boys, because we are dealing with that. We bring into this room, at least as a sort of spiritual presence, you need to know that there is something like this careful work, initiation rites for boys. Let's take a look at who we are with reference to this issue. Please, would you raise your hands? Who of you is a father? Almost all of you are fathers. Who is in the hot phase from 0 to 12? Children aged in that range. Whose children have left the house already? Thank you. And who has more than one mother who has children with with more than one woman? And who would say, those who have not yet fathers, those who are not yet fathers, I have a desire to become a father, and the proof to the contrary? Well, as I feel right now, I would say, no, it will not become a part of my life, being a father. Okay. And 2 things that I would like to learn from you. Who of the fathers would say, well, looking around, I can say, my loving relationship, my partnership, my sexuality during this parenthood has got lost. Look around, because that's also one of the reasons why we are here, because it's also to make you realize that your topics are also the topics of so many other men. Who has broken up with children, or the children said, I do not want to have any contact with you? Who has had this experience? Okay, thank you. Now, I would now ask you to close your eyes for a moment, just to get into the right mood for this topic. What does this topic mean to you? Being a father, fatherhood, right now in my life. And what moves me? What are my questions? What is the essence? What is the fundamental thing about my fatherhood? And what might be a thing that brings you a little way further down the road? New insights, new ideas. You as a father, or you as somebody having the desire to become a father. Where are you now? Okay, thank you. You may now open your eyes. And one last question to you. Who has ever sworn to himself, I will at any rate be a different father from my own father? Look around. Probably all. So we are right in the center of our issue here. Me and my father. Everybody wanted to know two things from a father. Am I your beloved son? And second, do you believe in me? Are you standing behind me? This hunger for Father is this pain and this emptiness in your soul if you haven't found an answer to those questions. Robert Bly, a well-known American author on male issues, said, we as men must not go back to an ancient patriarchy. But we must recognize, we as men and also our boys, have this hunger, this need, this longing for strong and authentic masculinity. And then he says, drug addiction. And he relates to the young men. Drug addiction is not related with mafia, but to the absence of the good father. There is something at stake when you are a father. Rudolf Steiner, the founder of anthroposophy, once stated it very simply, very good. He encapsulates a good parenthood. May you accept your child in respect, educated in love, and release them to freedom. Encounter them with respect. Educate them with love and release them into freedom, so you may listen with the inner boy's ear that you once were. But this is also the birthright of your own children. Let's talk about ourselves, our own dresses. You were entitled by your birth that your fundamental needs be fulfilled. And most and foremost, the right or the entitlement to the feeling of being wanted, that your parents wanted you. You had the right to be appreciated for your energy, for your liveliness, also your tears, your rage, your fear, that your parents can tolerate you. You had the right to have a loving, present, and physical contact. And you were born with the right to grow in a living atmosphere, a caring atmosphere, because you saw your parents were faring well with each other. Their love, their sexuality, that they preserve this inner flame, that so that you can feel at home in this creative tension. And you needed your father so as to serve as an orientation. If a father shows his son his love, then the son may be good to himself and later also show his love to his own children. Once and the father shows his feelings, then the son realizes it's okay to show your emotions, and he will then pass that attitude on to his own sons. If he realizes it's okay to commit mistakes, this means that later on you have the choice or the chance to become a father that needs not be the heroic loner. And you were entitled to have the father standing behind you. You can do so, because if your father tells you, you can do so. If he doesn't tell you, then probably you won't be able, nor will you be able to realize that for your own children, in being an encouraging father. And under the proviso that we have a space of trust, that we show each other that we grow together, and that what we can see of each other. This is, would you please raise your hand? My father was physically present, but he was not present in the inner sense. Okay, thank you. All whose parents separated during their childhood, please give me a show of hands. Yes, thank you. All those who grew up without a father, with a single mother, please show your hands. I would encourage you, look around, because we are going to spend 2 days here together. It's a networking event, and we are talking about things that touch it in the inner self. So you can see that there are other men. All those who have split up with their fathers one time or another, probably one-third, all those who currently have a strong conflict with their fathers, so with the great grandfather of their own children, all those who wish to have a better relationship with their fathers, practically all. And all those who find that they are more similar to their own fathers that they would wish to, also practically all. And finally, all those who, when they think of their own father, feel anger and frustration primarily. All those who feel mourning, sorrow, grief. These are many, almost all. And all those who feel gratitude and joy primarily. Thank you. 2 years ago, it was the same. In both questions, probably the same number of arms were raised. Grief about the loss, and probably also the anger and the wrath, but at the same time, love. If you go into this work, the settlement of your relationship or coping, you do it also to honor your father. This may sound crazy, because you have so much wrath deep inside yourself, but deep inside yourself, you loved your father. And you do this work also to honor your father. That's what it is. Now, none of us have grown on paradise, accepted with respect and raised with love and released into freedom. Here some original sounds, fathers and sons. Some quotes in an anonymous way. I would suggest that you close again your eyes. I would like to read out some of these original quotes. Please close your eyes so that you can really sense inside yourself. What must it have been like as a young kid when you as an adult have to state those things?
My parents separated when I was 14 years old. There was always a lot of fighting and quarrels at home, but I thought that was normal. My dad is often angry, but Mum says, well, that's just the way it is because he is choleric. Mum says that I must never become like him. My dad is the lawyer who earns the money. He's very generous, but I don't have fun with him. He's not interested in me. He doesn't care about me, and when he's there, it feels weird. We never really missed him. He didn't really belong to the family. I would have wanted my father not to leave me alone in my sadness for so many years. For many years, it was not possible to reach me. Even I couldn't reach myself. My mother systematically prevented me from having a healthy relationship with my father, and the clumsy attempts of my father to get in contact with me, well, somehow I couldn't accept these attempts, and that's why sooner or later he obviously gave up. My mum beat us, the children, for no reason, and she locked us in. My dad was there, but he never protected us. He never protected us from my mother. Back then, I had the feeling that my mother suffered very much from my father, and I wanted to save and protect her. That's why I never thought positively of men. What has left a deep mark on me is my father's sentence, well, that wasn't very well done, kid, every time I did something wrong. And obviously, that's something that I kept going throughout my entire life, things that I didn't do well. I have the feeling I have not yet reached real masculinity. Sometimes I feel like I'm there, like I'm a man, and I can even see myself as a father. But most of the time, I feel like a little boy disguised as a man. Thanks, you can open your eyes again. And I think it's obvious, if that's where you come from, if that's your background, and you want to become a competent and loving, active father, there is a certain need to sort things out. There's a need for clarification. And I think all of us, we carry such burdens with us one way or another. Maybe we still have the scars, the wounds, because we were left behind, we were not noticed. Or maybe a scar, a wound that was caused because there was too much, maybe too much love from our mother. Maybe our mothers wanted us to be a substitute because our fathers were not there for them. And then this general feeling of shame, because the logic of a child is, if my mom, if my dad treats me that way, then obviously I'm not okay, there's something wrong with me. And that's how you start in life. We didn't have the chance to run away, to just leave back then. We were not allowed to cry when we were sad or to be angry when we felt angry. So when we were angry, we had our protective coating, our protective mechanisms that we always went through in order to deal with our anger. And this still causes us problems today. So when you have this feeling of that you were left behind as a child, that your dad didn't care of you, then maybe you try to compensate for that now by having symbiotic love affairs. Or maybe you will work and work until the burnout sets in, simply because you never had the impression that anybody ever loved you for yourself. Or if your mother gave you all her love, simply because your father wasn't there, then you will probably try to retreat and just be alone for yourself. And I think most of us have made both experiences. Sometimes there was too little love, too little closeness, and sometimes too much of it. And that's why we probably also go back and forth between the feeling of, well, this urgent need to be close to somebody and the urgent need to have a certain distance. So if you sort out your relationship with your father, this means you can learn to live with these wounds without letting them dictate your life. This means you decide to look the problem in its face, you decide to go back to the past, and you decide to learn to become your own father, which means you take this vulnerable part of you and say, okay, you take this vulnerable part of you by the hand and say, okay, let's go there once again and look at it. And that is work, and it's also got something to do with sadness, but first and foremost with anger. And that's why you need the company of other men who are there with you. So could you please close your eyes again? And you can picture your father in your mind's eye, the face, maybe the last time you saw your father, the last time you said goodbye, maybe at the door of your parents' home, or maybe at his grave. And then remember and picture a moment when you admired your father, when you looked up to him. Or maybe the moment when, for the first time, you understood that you can't really rely on him. And then take your time to have the feelings, the emotions that you have. How do you feel about this? Sad? Angry? Fearful? Or do you have a diffuse feeling of shame or joy? Or do you feel just nothing? Is it just void? Do you just ask yourself, who was this person? Now you can leave your eyes closed while I'm reading out 4 sentences that I would like to suggest to you. And for each of these sentences, I would like you to ask yourself, if you can agree with that, if that is also your truth. The first sentence is, I'm still afraid of your opinion, and I'm still striving to please you. Or if your father's already dead, then the sentence would be, all your life, I've been afraid of your opinion, and I've always tried to please you. Which of you agrees with this sentence? Okay, then the second sentence. Everything that goes wrong in my life is my father's fault. It's your fault that I feel lost and empty inside. Which of you agrees with that sentence? Third sentence. A part from me is looking for healing. A part of me wants to be close to you, but at the same time I cling to my anger and I reject you. Which of you agrees with that? And the final sentence. You were there too rarely, and the distance between us grew. And for a long time, I didn't want to admit that I was yearning for you. I was longing for you. Thank you. Oh, you can open your eyes again. Now, you had various different ways of dealing with the situation. When you felt this void, this emptiness, the fact that the father was blank, wasn't there. Let me just give you a list of the 4 most obvious options. The first thing you could have done was to say, well, I ignore my father, forget about it. As soon as I'm an adult, I'll leave the household as quickly as possible and I build up my own home with my own family. Which of you tried to do that? The second option to react would have been just the opposite. Try to become like your father. If only I become exactly what he wants me to become, then maybe I will get his recognition, his appreciation. Who tried to do it that way? And then, well, the opposite, to become totally different than your father. Maybe you said, maybe your mum said, you must never be like your father. Who of you tried to do it that way? Never be like my father. Well, that's the majority. And the fourth option, rebellion, well, straightforward, fuck you, confront your father, insult him. Who tried to do it that way? Okay, thank you. So these were 4 obvious strategies that we may have applied to deal with the situation somehow, and these strategies may help us a little bit, but they, of course, have never been able to fill the void and heal the pain. And then comes the moment, sooner or later, and sometimes the boys or men are 20 or 21 years old when they reach this point, and sometimes they are 50 or 60 years old when they deal with this task. But sooner or later, there comes the moment when you say, okay, if I want to grow further, I have to sort this out. For example, you may have problems with authorities, with hierarchies, with your boss, and you find out this is an old story that keeps repeating itself in my life over and over again. Or maybe one day you're just burnt out and relaxed because you always try to be successful at work, to be successful in order to fill the void until you find out you can't go on like that anymore. Or maybe you feel that you have this need for friendship with men. And at the same time, you also feel a bit clumsy because being close to a man is like being close to a father. And that really brings up all the old memories again. Or, I think for most of us, sooner or later, we come to a moment in our partnerships, in our relationships, that we say, I should show my inside, my emotions. I should open up my heart now because I'm having a relationship. But the problem is, when I was a kid, I closed my heart to let nobody look inside, and that's why I can't open it up anymore. Or the 5th moment would be the moment when you become a father, and all of a sudden you realize, I don't want to heal the wounds that I got from my father by having kids. No, I want to heal my wounds from the past first, and then I want to decide what kind of father I want to be. And that means that, ultimately, you make this decision. Say, okay, I'll revisit my relationship with a partner. With a father. I'll have another look at it. So far, I've only run away from that problem, but now I'm going to face it. and you learn to become a father for yourself with the support of other men. And then there's this moment when a part of you says, okay, no, finally, I'm allowed to feel what I was not allowed to feel back then. This anger that I felt back then, this sadness that I felt back then. Finally, I can revisit this. I can go there again in order to make sure that I don't get stuck in these feelings for the rest of my life.
And what matters to me is that there is a difference. There are two different things that we need to tell apart. The one is the space of healing for your anger, your wrath, your pain, which means that you are embarking on the path to adulthood. You would say, I'm not responsible of what happened then, but I'm responsible of how I deal with it now. So this brings you into contact with this uncorruptible inner self, this core of your identity, accepting yourself, loving yourself. It's not so far away from what we might tend to think. This is your way. Your coming of age, you take over responsibility for yourself. And the second thing is, then you are ready. It's no longer fake or things like I should. No, then you can do it. You can also release your father from his father's role. Yes, of course, your father is still responsible for what he did to you, but it's his responsibility. And to a certain degree, we can also find a realistic memory or image of what your father was to you, seeing his own origins, inclusive of the whole collective story or history that he is part of. Then we can take a free choice. Which elements will I keep? Which elements will I change? Probably you will then be able to enter into a dialogue with your father, questioning him about his own story. I remember my own father. We were sitting in front of a hut that we owned. It was certainly a highlight of our life, like two actors after a theatrical performance. How was it? You performed that role and I my role. What went on? Probably it will happen. Not necessarily, but it may happen if you go your own way. Your contact to your father will be a different one. Every father is waiting. Steve Eiffel tells the story. A son takes the decision to pay a visit to his own father, 3,000 kilometers from one coast to the other. He arrives at the doorstep. He rings the bell for 20 years. Father, I have come to tell you, I can no longer believe the story as told by my mother. I want to listen to your story. And what Steve Reich then tells us, what happens then? The father said, now I can die. In other words, sooner or later, the whole story turns around. Yes, when you are a boy, the father is almost almighty, but sooner or later, we become the mighty ones because the fathers are waiting for us, that you turn to him. That's our job. Normally, the fathers will not come back to us. Gregory Campbell put it like this, in a more sober way. No matter what has happened to you, man, you have survived. And if you need more livelihood or more masculinity, it is about time to part ways with your parents in dignity and respect. Then you will be free as a man to look elsewhere for those things that you were missing so much as a boy. I remember when working on this topic of fatherhood, we always have an evening where everyone has to light a candle for a mentor. For everybody of us, there is such a man. At times they assisted us for a long time. At times we met them only once. What comes forth when every man steps into this. This candle is for my football trainer or my teacher who really saw me as I was. That's an atmosphere of brotherhood, mindfulness, and respect for each other. It's a bit like the life blood. I bet everyone here has had somebody like another 20. Oh, still 20 minutes left? Okay. Now, please, as time is running up, let me tell you a few things that are so close to my heart when it comes to being a father. What I follow up on what Steiner said, accept children in respect. This means, for me, as a father, as a man, you take on responsibility, how the birth of your children goes on. My fortune was that my children were born at home. It's an initiation. It's also a moment of holiness. Who could say, yes, the birth that I lived through was a holy moment? Yes. So it's your job as a father to protect this moment, that this moment be sanctified as much as possible. The best that I can, that you can do this at home. The second thing is that you understand that this life has been given as a gift to you, that something comes that goes beyond your orders, a being that brings together a new evolutionary impulse, a human being that is sitting on your shoulders that will certainly grow beyond you. Accepting them in respect means also that you abstain from creating a fixed image of what this child should be in the future. Although we have not so much time, I would try to read out that poetry by Khalil Gibran, the prophet. Khalil Gibran, the prophet, where the mother says, talk to us about the children. It expresses it so beautifully, what this means, awe and respect of life and what comes to you. If you want, you may close your eyes once again, because it's good to relish this, to take this really in. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of the longing of life for itself. They come through you, but they do not come from you. Although they are with you, they do not belong to you. You are not their owners. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, because they are going to have their own thoughts. You are allowed to give a home to their bodies, but not to their souls, because their souls live in the house of tomorrow that you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but never try to make them similar to yourselves, because life does never go back. It is simply there. You are the arcs from which the bows from which your children are sent out as living arrows. The huntsman will see the objective, and he will then bring this bow into an extreme tension. Let the arc then be bent towards joy, because the huntsman will love the direction and the arrow, and this bow may be us. We are the bows that shoot the arrows of our children. Just a few key words towards the end, because time is running out. A few things that are so important to me. The first thing is, take your own decision to become a father. get it sorted out. Why do you become a father? Because being a father will not solve any of the problems that you've had so far, nor will it repair or rescue the relationship, nor will it ever work to just leave the child to your wife while you can continue your life as you did before, nor become a father to fulfill the longing for a child of your spouse. Why do you become a father? All those who have taken this decision or that want to look back at, please be frank and honest to yourself. What is or has been my reason for being there for another human being? Once you have taken the decision, please picture the most beautiful image that you want to see and adhere to it, stick to it. I am saying so because in our partnerships, things will become tight and push will come to shove. So it's important to keep this in mind, a clear vision. You also need to have a clear vision. This means, will I be able or will I be ready to be there for my child together with this woman? Will I also be ready to place the well-being of this child above my own well-being or not? Do I calculate when I become a father? Would I take it into account? Yes. Nowadays, we can also split up and separate. And do I want to take this into account? Third thing, being a good father, being a good mother does not give room to the battle of sexes. I mean by this neither patriarchal fathers nor chauvinist women, because at times the devaluation of masculinity and the low esteem of femininity, which at times can be unsufferable, it starts when children start growing in this atmosphere of this continuous battle, of this not coming to terms. I think we do not need more femininity or more masculinity and less femininity, or now we need more healed masculinity and healed femininity. Thank you. So make sure that you chip in your contribution. What we are doing here is our contribution as men. I will cut out on the other things, because one thing is so important. Our boys, our kids, we should take them in here, because they are the ultimate purpose. I would like to view a short extract from an initiation rite. It's the Phoenix Boys to Men. There is a whole number of offering initiation rites for our children, but not only for boys, but also in girls. It is the time of the female dragons. My 16-year-old daughter went there, and I'm so happy that for 3/4 of a year she could go this way, accompanied by female mentors. And how the boys are going about this, we are going to view this in the film. First, you see a boy. Well, it stretches for 3/4 of a year. And the apex of this is the right time, 24 hours, the boys in the forest, and they are fasting. And what they will come back, what they have gone through, a short sequence where the godfathers come together. When was it the last time that you were happy? And then Eike Schwarz, the initiator, talks about the question, what does it mean today, initiating the boys? It lasts for 7 minutes. At the end of these rituals, the boys are brought back to their parents, and they encounter their parents again. Now you may screen the video.
Pablo. Und als es dunkel wurde,
When darkness set in, I tried to fall asleep because I didn't want to have to be awake while it was dark. So I fell asleep, and then I woke up in the middle of the night, and that was really scary.
ich weiß nicht, dann habe ich mich abgelenkt. Ich habe die ganze Zeit gedacht,
And, well, I don't know, so I was trying to distract myself
immer auf dem Rücken.
because I was afraid. All the time I was thinking there is somebody there who wants to kill me. You see, I always sleep on the back.
Auch zu Hause schlafe ich immer so, dass hinter meinem Rücken die Wand ist. Weil sonst
Simply because then I know there's nothing behind me. At home, I always sleep lying on the side, but with the wall behind me, so I know the wall is behind me. I can never sleep with the feeling that somebody might be behind my back. So where I was lying there, in that moment, I was lying on my back, and it really hurt after a while, but I couldn't really turn to the side because then I would have exposed my back, and somebody might have been behind my back. And then you hit some noises, you know, the cracking of twigs, and I knew there was nobody. I knew there was nobody, but still I had this feeling. And then I tried to distract myself a bit. I even tried to count sheep, because that's what we normally do. As kids, normally we count sheep to fall asleep, but it didn't work. I didn't fall asleep. So I tried to remember things to distract myself. And then after a while, it was over. It was gone. And then I was able for the first time to lie on the side and sleep without having a wall behind me that would have protected me. Simply because I was so extremely tired that I didn't care anymore if there was anybody behind me. I just didn't worry about it anymore. So while I was trying to distract myself, I was thinking about my future as well, and about my mother, because we fight quite often. Quite often I'm also unjust, unfair to her. I mean, in a way, she does everything for me. She does everything she can to make me happy. She only wants the best for me, and I can really be a shitbag now and then. And I decided for myself that I want to change that.
Frage heißt, wann seid ihr und bei welcher Gelegenheit seid ihr das letzte Mal?
The question is as follows. When, on what occasion, or what was the last time you were really happy? What was the occasion? When did that happen?
Ich habe mir ja einen Hammer und Nägel mitgebracht von zu Hause.
Well, I brought a hammer and nails with me.
So eine kleine Plattform gebaut.
And you see, sometimes you have little cabins in the forest with wooden planks, and I took these planks to build a platform, and I installed this platform on a tree. It was an oak tree, and I built this platform there.
Darauf habe ich halt die Plattform gebaut.
So there were two branches that were parallel to each other, and I built this platform with the wooden planks up there on the oak tree. It was quite high up in the air, but it was really relaxed. Well, yes, David and myself, you see, sometimes in the forest they have these little cabins for hunters, you know, with a ladder, and you climb up the ladder, and then there's this little cabin at the top for hunters, from where they can shoot animals. And David and me, we also climbed into such a cabin, and it was great because nobody else was there to disturb us. We really had the opportunity to have a good talk, a good conversation. And I asked David, what has changed? What has happened? You know, when I picked him up and I saw him, I said to myself, he does not only look tired. Okay, it's true, he was tired, he hadn't slept very much, that's why it didn't look good. But I had the impression there's something else in his eyes. It's not just that he's tired. There's some kind of maturity in his eyes. Maybe it was just a projection, I don't know, but that's the impression I had.
Ein modernes Übergangsritual in diesem Alter kann die Jungs nur in ihrer Aufgabe unterstützen, dass sie ihren eigenen Weg finden müssen.
Well,
Das ist ja der Unterschied.
you can use modern rituals and initiation, but only in order to support young people finding their own way. That's different. In the past, in old cultures, they also used to have initiation rituals where youngs were initiated, they were confronted with certain expectations. In other words, they were told you have to do this and you have to do that, and then you're a good man. That's what it used to be like in the past. But we can't do it like that anymore, simply because we don't know what life will be like in 50 years from now. We can't predict that. So the only thing we can do is we have to strengthen young people with the resources they have, with the abilities they have, and with the gifts they have. And that's what we do in this ritual. Now, what I will remember from this time that I've spent here with you is the stormy weather that we've had here so often. Rain and storms, but also sunshine. And that's a symbol, a metaphor, I think, for the dynamic and powerful character of this group. Thank you to Eike Schwarz and the people who do this kind of work, not only for boys, by the way, but also for girls. Okay, now at the end of my talk, I'd like to ask you to close your eyes again for just another 2 minutes, because we have been kind of sorting out this whole topic of becoming a father and being a father now. And quite a lot of things we've talked about in this context. So let's take a bit of time. Let's take a moment and focus on yourself, on your inside, to see where you have arrived now, where you are standing now. Maybe also once again to ask yourself why you are here and what your feelings are, what moves and touches you and what you need. But also, of course, what you have to give, what you have to contribute to this pool of men. And then you can also extend your aerials, your antennas, because you're here with 400 other men looking for something, searching. So what does that feel like? Maybe you have a feeling of insecurity, uncertainty, inner peace, joy, satisfaction. And maybe some of you even have this feeling of finally arriving in the world of men. Robert Bouvet described this arrival the following way. By encountering myself as a man in the eyes and hearts of my fellow men, I also arrive at myself. As soon as I allow my fellow men to participate in my most inner thoughts and feelings, I feel I'm in a cozy place. As soon as I let others see through me, I can recognize myself and others, and I will feel at home. And then, once again, you can make yourself aware of the fact that the things that you're going to do and experience and explore here at the Mannsein conference, these are things you do not just do for yourself, but also for your loved ones, your children, and the people around you. You can take 1 more minute just for yourself in silence to think about these things before we close this session and break for lunch. Good, then you can slowly open your eyes again. Maybe you'd like to stretch a little bit. Now, you can start our lunch break, and at 2 o'clock, we'll start. Maybe you want to say a few more words about that anyway. Well, I'm always grateful for feedback and exchange with you. I'll be here for 2 days, so thank you very much, and also for your attention.